Hi, Christelle, and welcome to Starting Remote. I'm so thrilled to be hosting you.
Hi, Yana. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Same here. Christelle, before we get into discussing co-working spaces, urban planning, urban resilience, and everything that we have planned for today, could you introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are? What were the major influences in your life? What drives you to, get up every morning and work and do what you like?
Yeah, that's a big question, but who am I? A quick intro on myself. I'm French. I came to the US 5 years ago. Very passionate about the environment, urban planning. I was trained as an urban planner. Passionate about neighborhoods, local economies. That makes me wake up every day, doing some good in our local communities. And what I love about remote work is that on an individual level, it's very liberating. You can get to work and live on your own terms. And also on an urban or society level, it has huge impact on our neighborhoods, on our communities, and on the environment. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. And this was the first mention about the teleworking, and actually the first support somewhere in the 60s or something like this, urban planning and the need to reduce pollution. That's when they first mentioned that maybe it's a good thing to consider teleworking. So here we are right now.
Yeah.
When did you move to California?
Moved to California 5 years ago.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it. At first I moved for school, going to the master's in city planning at UC Berkeley. And then, San Francisco grew on me, I guess. And I started a company like everybody here.
When did you start working remote?
I think I've always been working remote. I've worked in an office very little time, to be honest. And so I can say for the past 3 years, we're fully remote or distributed, is probably the better term for Codi.
Okay. And do you like and are you passionate about remote work mostly because of related to ecology, or there's something more to it as well?
I honestly think it's the future of work. And now the present, honestly, more than half of Americans are working remotely. I think in Europe, a lot of people still do. My passion for it comes from urban planning, because it helps local communities a ton. It helps avoiding commutes, focus on your neighborhood instead of going downtown, and support local businesses as well. But my work in remote work really started when I started to work from home. And I had a really hard time. And so we can dig into that if you want, but that's how I created the company and started to really work on that field.
You started a company, we're talking about Codi right now, 2016?
Yep. 18.
18. Okay, and it was called hīven before?
Hīven, yeah.
Okay, hīven. What does that come from?
The hive, the bees.
Okay.
I tend to think about the homes as a hive, and then the coworkers were the bees that come and work together and collaborate.
So tell me a bit about hīven and then Codi. How did the idea come about, and how did you put it in practice? It's quite unique, and no one I spoke with here in Europe knew about the concept, but everyone was very excited about the concept.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So as I said, when I started to work on Codi, I actually was experiencing working from home myself. And first I thought I would love it because you're flexible, you can do whatever you want, you can stay local, which really matters to me. But pretty fast I became sick of being at home every day. I felt isolated, distracted. I would take unhealthy habits like skipping meals or forgetting to shower and not going out for days in a row. And so I had to get out of the house. I went to local coffee shops, and it was noisy, it was unreliable. I saw a lot of people like myself trying to work, but the Wi-Fi, the power outlets, the seats, it's very hard to have reliability in a coffee shop. And so I considered a traditional co-working space, but I didn't want to commute all the way downtown and pay an expensive membership. I wanted to stay in my neighborhood and not having to commute every day. It was not really exciting to me also to be sitting in an office, you know, because at the end of the day, a co-working space is kind of a shared office. And so what I did instead is I called a friend and I worked at her place. She invited a couple of other friends or other people I didn't know to work with us. And it was wonderful. She lived a couple of blocks away from me, so it was super short walk, you know. I felt very productive. It was quiet. You have everything you need, but you're not in your home. So psychologically, you feel you're living something different from your routine at home every day. And that's what I needed, I think. And that day when I walked by home, I remember very clearly like looking around me and thinking, this was great. I want to live this again. And looking around, like realize like we are surrounded with beautiful homes that are just sitting empty all day long in our neighborhoods. And I got very excited. I wanted to open those doors and go work there for a day and keep that magic, like keep that experience alive. And so I couldn't let it go and it became Codi.
And was it hard to convince the owners to transform their spaces into offices for other people to just come in, stay for a day, work, and then get out?
Honestly, it was not. I thought initially that it would, but to my biggest surprise, it was not. It was the other way around was more difficult in the early days. Now it's less so because everyone is used to work from home. But a lot of our hosts were actually work from home professionals who felt a little bit lonely. They wanted to have company. And then our job was to make sure that the space is good enough for a work session and then upgrade the home according to our standards so that it feels a bit more professional and you have coffee, you have power outlets, you feel you're taken care of. And a home is wonderful for that. Everyone is working from home now, right? So there's definitely a way to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this would be a good concept in here as well. And that's why I'm asking all of these questions. I feel the same, right? I work from home, but it's good to take 30 minutes or an hour to go to a co-working space in the center and to feel like I'm in an office and still isolated from everyone, not having my beautiful chair where I can sit, relax, and it's ergonomical, that I don't have any back issues. It doesn't feel like it's something that I want to do, but would I want to have someone around me working at the same time so we can all keep focused, maybe share a coffee, talk about something different, share some other ideas for sure. I would love to have that. In how many locations are you present right now in the US?
We're currently expanding nationally. So hard for me to tell like on the top of my mind, but like we have hundreds and hundreds of hosts in the pipeline across the US in all major cities mostly, but also in like smaller towns because it doesn't, Codi is a concept that you can apply anywhere. You don't need to be in a big city.
And do you have any feedback from either the hosts or from those that are renting the places? I'm curious what they say.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, we learned a ton. We've been operating for the past 2 years and a half, almost 3 years now. It evolved dramatically. And that's why I was mentioning like the standards are very important. So that's our job to make sure that everyone has the same coffee and things like that. So the first feedback was actually that figuring out the coffee machine at each home was annoying for our members. So we standardized coffee and now it's Nespresso coffee or Kirk's coffee everywhere. And then my favorite feedback is when people actually create connections. So members between members or members and hosts, sometimes between hosts because we do events and things like that. And that creates a very unique story because at the end of the day, these are your neighbors that you wouldn't have met otherwise. And so it's always great to hear this type of like success stories.
You get to know them to a totally different level. One of the issues that I always had with co-working spaces, and that's what my friends told me as well, that's what I read in the news and in all sorts of articles, is that you do end up working with people, but when you are in the place itself, you rarely talk to someone that is from another company or working on something else, right? They're not necessarily built for socializing, or people don't socialize. They go, do their work, get out, and this is one of the biggest complaints. Tell me, how is it when people go to their neighbor's house and work together? Is it better? Does it build better communities? Did you notice anything to that effect?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we heard that a lot, and a lot of our members tried co-working spaces and were disappointed by the community, as you said, because that's a big pitch of the co-working spaces, and not a lot deliver on it for different reasons. My belief is that a smaller space helps create more meaningful interactions, because when you are with 5 other people and you typically all go to lunch at the same time or have a coffee break at the same time, you do talk to the 5 people in that room with you or in that house with you. And so it creates deeper connections that way, more meaningful, more deep. And it's kind of like serendipity that you can't avoid it, but like it's rare that members don't talk to each other at all.
And have you seen any other effects that maybe were unexpected, even for you, when you started Codi and you got people together as in?
Yeah, like this is a San Francisco story, but one of our hosts was an investor, like a new investor. They just started investing in startups, learning about it. And they were hosting a team almost every day, a startup team, who was fundraising. So it was a great connection for both of them, like to learn about the investment world and the startup world between each other. And it created a great connection. That's like a great story. I have also a great story from just our team was using a kind of a house specifically as our HQ. And the host was wonderful. She had a little kid, and we all got super attached with the kid, doing birthday parties with her and stuff. So it's really, magic moments like that make Codi, I think, different from any co-working space. We are 7.
Oh, and is it? Are you planning to grow?
Sure. as soon as like we grow more companies and partners and cities, sure, we're gonna do the headcount. For now, it's a good size. I like this size a lot.
Yeah, I was actually going to see when are you going to start something in Europe? Did you ever test Paris?
No, I haven't tested Paris. We got like some host applicants, so demand in London, Barcelona, Berlin, I think Milan. So a couple of, not in France yet. Like I'm sure, I have a lot of friends in Paris. I'm sure we'll push that market at some point. But for now, we're focusing on the US market and Canada soon, and afterwards we'll launch in Europe.
Remote work has not issues, but things that maybe don't work as well as when you are co-located. Right? Communication is still better when you are co-located. Collaboration works better. Innovation, with some exceptions, can work better when you are co-located. People feel more connected if they go to a certain place of work and they belong there, right? They see the name of the company, they have mugs with the name of the company, and so on. Do you think co-working spaces will evolve to that level so they can somehow not solve, but support some of this identity creation, better collaboration, better innovation, maybe even strive towards more better well-being, maybe even work-family balance? So things where maybe remote work is still a bit, dealing with and trying to solve.
Yeah, definitely. There were a couple of studies showing that the ideal mix is 2-3 days at home, 2-3 days elsewhere. Then, as you said, like as a remote worker, you don't want to commute. And that's, to me, the biggest challenge with co-working spaces right now is that all of them are in commercial spaces. So they are downtown. So they are close to an office, and it looks like an office. It's a shared office. And so it's still the same commute than going to an office. And so as a remote worker, do you want to go back to an office 2 days a week, 3 days a week? It means that you're stuck to living in close to that office. So you can't really work from anywhere. And the future of work, as we discussed, is work from anywhere. So my biggest question there is like, how can co-working support work from anywhere and support this trend that is clearly going in the remote work era, right? So I think co-working needs to be closer to where people live. It needs to be in residential neighborhoods. For the Europe, it's more mixed use. That's a kind of urban planning term. So you have access to commercial spaces closer to where you live. But in the US, 99% of Americans do not live within 1 mile of a downtown area. So it's very, very limited. At the same time, when we talk with companies, a lot of them, have the same issues that what you raised. Like they feel employee bonding is loosening, it's weakening. They want to create company culture, but they don't know how remotely. They are stuck in a lease and they need to, kind of justify that investment. And so they're trying to push back for their employees to go back there. I think there's an in-between. And a hybrid model should help most of those problems. As long as the biggest benefit of remote work, which is not commuting, is respected, then it can definitely work. And co-working spaces help get out of your house and have a clear separation between your home life and your work life, which is important for employee well-being. And when you cluster several employees per company in one space, then it creates this employee bonding and it creates this company culture and serendipity that employers and sometimes employees are missing.
Did you see any kind of communities creating or groups being created around centers of interest in the same neighborhood, right? Locally, but around a certain interest. So they would go to a specific house because the host would have a certain interest.
Yeah, definitely. We saw that a lot with designers. For instance, designers love being around each other so that they can show their designs and get feedback very fast. So Design House was pretty successful. Sometimes it's also based on hobbies. People want to get out of their work and have coworkers that have similar interests, but outside of work, like music, sports. So you could have a theme like that. That's something that we want to develop at Codi, is how people connect based on common professional or non-professional interests. And that definitely helps create friendships and innovation.
So someone would be able to book a house which would be called the Design House, and they would just go there, spend the day, and then move to another design house, maybe. Or is that what you envision, or something different?
Yeah. It's similar. It would be more and we actually started to do that, is we would tell you, hey, there's 2 other people that work in, that are startup founders. You want to join them. They are in that house, and then you can go there. Or they are 2 other designers in that Codi. Do you want to join them? So it's more dynamic. We don't fix a house as being the design house. It depends where people actually go. And then we can just tell you where they're going based on interest.
Very nice. You have to come to. I think this would be a great success, and for sure in Amsterdam. Christelle, you have studied urban planning, and you talk a lot, and one of your passions, at least from what I've seen in your blogs and articles, urban resilience. What's the connection between what you do at Codi and urban? If there's any.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, thanks for asking the question. So first, let me just define quickly urban resilience. Urban resilience is the capacity of individuals or communities to adapt and to grow despite a shock, an economic shock or a social shock. We're currently in a pretty big shock, for instance, with the global pandemic that has triggered a huge shift with remote work invading our lives, right? Invading companies. And it changed the dynamics of our cities. If you think about it, downtown areas are pretty much empty, at least in the US, where there's still a shutdown. These are all empty offices. And so downtown are just dying, where there's a refocus on our neighborhood communities. And neighborhoods have never been as important as they are right now, because everyone is working and living in that area. I like to call it like back to the village, kind of. And resilience is about, okay, how can we, so for Codi, maybe I can talk about that more. It's like, how can we grow as a community in our neighborhood and as a remote work community? There's no real local remote work community. Like, everyone stay at home by themselves. That's kind of like the status quo right now. And what I'm trying to create with Codi is help, explode that bubble so that we can create connections between remote workers and share each other's homes and work together. It can be with your friends, your coworkers, or just neighbors. And that creates urban resilience in the sense of, if everyone stay in their neighborhood, they're going to consume locally and spend their money locally instead of spending their money in the downtown. And that helps support local businesses. They will avoid commuting downtown, so it's going to help the environment and reduce carbon emissions. And also the fact that we're not creating more buildings. Office buildings are very, very intense in terms of carbon footprint and energy use. So the Codi model helps just use what is existing and underutilized during a period of time, like homes during the day, and make it optimize the use of it and make it available for the community. So this is what I call like urban resilience within the local, neighborhood and the local scale.
I know right now you are only present, I think, around 11 locations, and you're extending now nationally. But did you do any sort of simulations if, 50% of the remote work in their neighborhoods, how much that would support, how much that would reduce emissions? Did you do any kind of simulations, just out of curiosity?
That's super interesting. I would love to do that. We're still early stage, so if there's anyone who wants to run that study with us, we would be happy to do it. I would love to do it, honestly. We haven't run exactly that data yet. As we grow, we'll definitely do that. Understanding better, like, okay, what's the impact basically on Codi on the local economy?
That would be very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to ask you, because here, at least, the shock during COVID for co-working spaces. How did you feel that for Codi and in the US with the general co-working spaces? Was it a big hit? Were you able to successfully provide some sort of safety and security feeling when people would go to the house? How did it work for you?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question. In general, co-working spaces have been hit similarly to offices because it's a commercial space. So you have hundreds of people going there every day. And they have leases like for 20 years or 10 years, long-term leases. So it's difficult for commercial spaces. Our model is pretty different at Codi because we're more like the Airbnb model, where we succeed if our hosts succeed, but if nothing happens, then nothing happens. Like, we don't have a lease for 20 years. It's we just earn money when our hosts earn money. So we've been spared, I think, compared to the traditional co-working space because of our business model. Now, during shelter in place, we didn't operate. We respected shelter in place. We just recently reopened, like in July, August. We've followed, like, the Codi team has followed the OSHA certified program. It's to create like the safety measures for our hosts and for our members. And so now, like, the capacity is reduced. When you go to a Codi, you basically are with like 2 to 5 people max, based on square footage. So there's physical distancing. You wear masks, and unless you are sitting at your workstation, as I am right now, I'm in a Codi. And you have hand sanitizers. The spaces are sanitized every day. So we've taken that very seriously. And we believe it's safer to go to a Codi than going to an office because you avoid commuting and you are with a few people versus hundreds of people.
How do you see the future of co-working spaces?
Yeah, I think co-working spaces are definitely necessary for remote workers in the sense of, like, as you said, like, it helps it's very logical. Like the value props are extremely compelling for a remote worker. You kill the isolation problem because you are around other people. You kill the distraction problem because you get out of your house a couple of days a week. And you avoid the burnout problem because not being at home helps define a separation between work and life. My concern, though, is that if co-working spaces remain the way they are right now, meaning in downtown, it's not actually going to be used by remote workers. If you look at like the 2020 buffer report, only 8% of remote workers actually use a co-working space. 8%. 80% were just staying at home. And the main reason is because they don't live close to a co-working space. Also, it's not very flexible. Like you have to pay for a full membership, where a remote worker typically needs a space 2-3 days a week, but not 5 days a week. So I think that there's a lot of room for innovation and for helping like co-working space better serve remote workers, so that those two problems of like lack of flexibility and lack of and like not lack but like commute, you not avoiding commute, are removed from like the co-working space model.
So you already told me that for Codi, the future is, at least the near future, is to create homes or to point people into places where they could co-create together or work together, like design homes or I don't know, fashion homes or whatever. What else do you have in plan? What other issues are you planning to solve, or what other things have been pointed out that you can say, yeah, Codi can solve that and we'll do it in the future?
Yeah, right now the biggest thing we're focusing on is working directly with companies. So a company that is transitioning from or reducing the office lease is trying to find a solution for their remote workers, trying to help them work better, have their best work life. So we're working with companies to directly create hubs for their employees where they live. So the company gives us a list of zip codes and we tailor our Codis based on where the employees actually live to minimize commute. And it's like 3 to 5 coworkers who go there and work together a couple of days a week. So that's like what we're focusing on to help companies transition to this model that is more hybrid and distributed. We are working on that right now. And so it's, let's say the company is called X. And so it's going to be the X Codi. And it's exclusively for those coworkers. And for the host, it's great because they have the same people every day coming back. It's very reliable, and it's a reliable source of income every month. For the companies, then they have more control on the experience. And we help them customize the experience. Like you can get custom snacks. You can have custom gears, like the company pens and stuff like that in the space. And we also like notify the team on Slack so that if someone books the place, then everyone knows and they can join the person. It creates engagement and company, employee bonding and company culture again.
You are now developing in the US and growing in the US, but at some point you might be growing in Europe as well, or Asia. Did you think about this? Would you encourage people to get in touch with you if they want to use the same model or get some advice or build it together with you?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, like the best way for us to go to Europe faster is to have a company who wants to use it. Like we'll do it, like because our model works. Like we have a tech platform that works everywhere. So yeah, that definitely. If a company wants to use it or a team wants to use it in Europe, like please reach out, go to codi.com/enterprise and you'll fill out the form and we'll get in touch. We're actually considering that for some US companies that have employees outside of the US.
Any tips and tricks maybe for someone who listens to this and is thinking, yeah, I would like to give this a try, but they've not been in touch with potential hosts or potential clients and they just want to start up? Any tips and tricks on how you started up and maybe they can copy that and then reach out?
Yeah, it's a great question. As a startup, we're still figuring it out and like each market is different. So the best way to start is like friends and family, the companies of your friends, the companies of your family members, see if there's interest. And from there, asking friends of friends, etc., and like increase the network to see if there's traction. So just a quick survey that you can share with people will help understand the traction. And like we can help that person out. So just reach out and we'll work together. You know, we're always figuring things out together. So there's no magic recipe.
So for those who reach out, there's a form on the site. And if they want to reach out to you directly, is it better via LinkedIn or how can they do it?
Over email would be great. LinkedIn, they can as well, but it's I'm slower in response. Christelle at Codi.com.
Perfect. I will share that in the podcast and write it up. So, Christelle, did I maybe forget to ask you something that you wanted to share and it's important either for co-working spaces or for remote work?
I mean, there's so much things going on right now on remote work. There's tons of questions that we can talk about. I think you covered pretty much very well, looking at the differences between co-working, office, Codi, work from home. I think we covered a lot of it.
Perfect. So thank you so much for today. And I'm really thrilled to share this with everyone. And I hope you can get traction everywhere in the US and here as well. It's a very, very nice idea.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for your time as well. And thanks for inviting me.